pointed at me and laughed so loud my tray tilted and the espresso shot sloshed like a small hot confession. You, the waitress, dare to ask about his child? The table erupted in cruel applause, and I felt everyone's eyes drilling into my ribs. But when I finally did the quietest thing anyone could imagine, the whole cafe went silent and the laughter stopped mid-breath. What happened after ruined his reputation and changed my life. Do not skip anything. Every second matters. If you hate watching the powerful humiliate the vulnerable, hit like now and subscribe. My name is Claire, I am 29, and I live in a tiny studio above a laundromat. I wait tables at the Linden, a neighborhood restaurant with oak tables scarred from 1,000 stories, steam that smells like burnt sugar and soap, and a playlist that pretends this place is calm. 3 days before that morning, I found an eviction notice wedged under my door demanding $1,500. My account held $223. I have a son to think about and a shift to finish. I grew up in a house where the oven light was brighter than any promise. My mother worked double shifts and taught me that work was a currency of dignity, even when there was no money. I learned to listen before I spoke and to fold sorrow into practical things like grocery lists and overtime. In college, I dropped out when my scholarship fell through, and I took a course in culinary basics while working nights. I trained as a barista and then taught myself to balance plates on my hip, learning people by how they ordered coffee. Now I navigate tips and schedules and a small social safety net that frays at the edges. I do this not because I love the restaurant business, but because it keeps my son Eli fed and keeps a roof over our heads. The Linden is both my stage and my shelter. Marcus, the manager, trusts me to run the morning shift. Lila and Sarah, my co-workers, cover my breaks. Theo, the regular, reads the paper in the corner, and Grace, the delivery driver, waves from the alley. Those names were ordinary until one man changed everything. That morning, the cafe smelled of warm milk, rain on asphalt, and lemon cleaner. The light hit the window like an accusation. Jonah Mercer arrived in a suit that glittered with a financial news logo, followed by 2 women who checked their phones and a man who kept laughing before anything was said. When the hostess announced his name, the room tilted toward him. People soften around money. They become quieter, more attentive. I felt Marcus glance at me like I was an arrow he had to let fly. Leela dropped a cup in the back, and the crash seemed far away. The table of 4 at the corner tensed as Jonah waved a hand and said he wanted the sunny table. The barista tamped a puck of espresso that left a feint of bitter tobacco in the air. I went to take their order. "Good morning," I said, voice steady, hands warm from ceramic. "What can I get for you?" he asked, smile wide enough to be dangerous. "Black coffee, please, and a croissant," he said. "And you, miss," his eyes slid to Eli, who was coloring at a small table by the window, "what is your relationship to that child?" I felt my throat close, a metallic taste of adrenaline. "He's my son," I answered. "We come here every Saturday." Jonah laughed, the sound cutting, and said, "You work here and you bring your kid? How quaint. Someone should be home with him." Leela flushed. Marcus stepped closer and said, "Claire, I can move the seating if you want." Jonah waved him off and leaned in. "No, let her. It's funny." "It's not funny," I said. He said, "Learning, or learning to beg. Pass the plate, Caroline. Let's show how the littlest things amuse us." The woman across from him lifted her eyebrows as if she had heard a private joke. Someone else at the counter snorted. My hands found the rim of a coffee cup so hard my knuckles hurt. Before I go on, if you are feeling anger right now, you are not alone. I felt it too, sharp and hot. If you have ever seen someone reduced in public, please take a moment. Write in the comments below, in one line, "I saw it," or "I never saw anything like that." Your short reply matters. It helps other people know they are not alone and builds a record that real people witnessed what happened. Share a tiny detail if you can, what you felt in that moment, one sentence maximum. Your words can comfort someone who is scared to speak and can guide us toward more stories like this. Leaving a comment might seem small, but it becomes proof when reporters and organizers look for witnesses. It becomes a community action that fuels change. After you comment, stay with me, because the quiet act I took next is what made everything go viral and brought the press and the lawyers to our door. He kept pushing, voice low, so that only our table and he could hear, or pretend to hear. You see, people like me support establishments like this. We expect a certain order. A child in service is untidy. I replied, "Eli is allowed here." He smirked. "Allowed? This is a public space for paying customers. Maybe you should be somewhere else." Marcus murmured, "Claire, it's okay. I'll take the rest." I looked at Eli drawing a sun with 3 crooked rays and felt something cold and extremely steady uncoil in my chest. Leela whispered, "Do something." Grace, who had just come in with a crate of pastries, stood frozen by the door. Jonah kept sipping his coffee, the cup a white moon between perfectly manicured fingers. "You think this is a spectacle?" Jonah said, louder, to the people near him. "Look at this," he said, and his friends laughed. The cafe smelled suddenly like lemon cleaner and fear. The light on Jonah's watch flashed like a judge's gavel. I walked to Eli's table and sat on the little chair like it was the only seat I had left. My voice was small at first. "Eli, do you want more crayons?" He looked up, shy, and nodded. I reached into my apron and pulled out a napkin with a drawing I had kept, an awkward sun we had made together last week. Jonas snorted. How touching. I stood, putting the napkin on the table between us, and I did the quietest thing anyone could expect me to do. I began to read. Not loud, not theatrical, just a woman's voice steady over the hum of the espresso machine. I read the sentence Eli had traced in crayon. "We are all people." I read it twice. The room tilted its head in that soft, dangerous way people do when they are about to take sides. The first moment of true tension stretched out. People shift in their chairs, forks stop midair. I felt the weight of the room like a hand on my shoulder. Jonah's smile tightened into a line. He leaned forward and said, "Really? Read to the whole room?" "Yes," I said, "I will." He laughed through his nose, sharp. "Make it quick. We have a board meeting." "This is exactly what a board meeting should hear," I replied. The barista paused the milk frothing, and even the street outside seemed to slow. A woman at the far table, Maya, reached for her phone and then hesitated. Theo folded his paper down and watched. Grace's hands trembled on her crate. "You are making a scene," Jonah hissed. "I am making sure my son knows kindness," I said. "Kindness isn't only for those with money." He scoffed and said, "You would moralize in public? That's rich." The quiet around me thickened until my words felt like stones dropped into a still pond. This was the second moment of tension, longer and heavier. I felt my heart beat like a fist. For a moment, I considered going back to the past and pretending nothing had happened. Then I heard Eli's small voice ask, "Why did he laugh, Mama?" My chest broke and then hardened into something purposeful. I told myself to breathe, and I did, slowly, tasting coffee and lemon, feeling the grain of the table under my palm, noting the warmth of another hand on my shoulder from Leela, noticing the faint metallic scent of Jonah's cologne, hearing Marcus clear his throat like a referee waiting for rules to fall into place. I chose to keep reading. My voice carried sentences about fairness and about how dignity is not a luxury. People began to film. Phones lifted like lighthouses. When I finished, there was a pause you could measure in breaths. Then someone clapped, then another. Jonah's face went blank and then red. He stood and said, "You will apologize to my family and to me." I said, "I will not apologize for treating my child with love." He rounded the table, and his friend, Daniel, filmed me with a smirk. "Call the police," he said. Lila called Marcus. Marcus shook his head and stepped forward. "Sir, please leave if you are unhappy." Jonah spat back. "You cannot ask me to leave. I am a donor here." At that, the woman behind him, Naomi, muttered something into her phone. Theo spoke up. "You can leave if you do not like how people are treated." The room hummed. Someone else, Officer Ramirez, who had been finishing coffee, stood and said, "Sir, keep it civil." Phones were recording, fingers typing, this ordinary scene becoming proof. Within 2 hours, someone uploaded a clip to a local community account and it started to spread. By evening, the video was on social platforms, tagged with words like humiliation, restaurant, justice, and waitress. In 24 hours, the clip had 1 million views. Writers from 2 local papers called Marcus. A reporter from Channel 7, Anna Lopez, asked for my statement and for footage. Donations began to appear in a GoFundMe started by Grace and Lila, $5,000 in the first day and another $12,000 over the week. Crowd support for our rent and for Eli's new school supplies. A local advocacy group for working parents contacted me and offered legal advice. Jonah's company released a statement about respecting all customers, but not before his publicist tried to spin the story. The press called Naomi and Daniel for comment. Their quotes made him look entitled. Within 3 days, his name trended with words like reputation and scandal. An internal investor newsletter leaked that his firm had seen a PR hit and his board removed him from a chairmanship. A drop in public trust they quantified as an 18% dip in a related fund. The viral clip became proof in the court of public opinion. People I had served for years came forward as witnesses. Theo wrote a note for the Channel 7 segment. Lila spoke about our breaks. Marcus gave a firm internal statement about supporting staff. Maya and Grace testified to the laughter and the change in tone. Naomi later apologized publicly, saying she had not understood the impact of class-based mockery. The community organized a small rally outside the Linden with handmade signs that read, "Dignity Matters." Donations paid off my eviction notice. Offers came in. An editor at a local magazine asked if I would write about hospitality. A nonprofit offered me a job coordinating community kitchens. Lawyers reached out pro bono, asking if I wanted to pursue a harassment case. I declined legal action at first because I wanted something beyond punishment. I wanted education and accountability. Jonah issued a clumsy apology that used the word misunderstanding more than responsibility. The press kept following the story until the initial fury cooled into a conversation about how we treat service workers. 1 month later, I had a calm job interview and a freelance column about working life. 3 months later, the board announcement of Jonah's demotion became a footnote on business pages and a case study in PR classes. 6 months later, Eli started preschool with a scholarship our neighborhood raised, and I had a small savings cushion for the first time in years. The most important change was in people around me. Customers who once assumed my place began to ask about me, to listen to my recommendations, to say thank you differently. The Linden started a small policy training for staff and management about respectful service and boundaries. I learned to speak up, not because it always ends well, but because silence often becomes consent. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real accounts of people who faced power and found a way to hold it to account. Share this video so others see that a quiet act can become the seed of a public reckoning. Never forget that a single small voice can silence a room and change reputations.